Today's destructive weather with reports of tornadoes and flash flooding. A quieter outlook. It's wet and windy to start the week. It turns dry by the end of it. I'll have all the details of that and more live from COP26 in Glasgow.
We're at COP26 ahead of the summit starting. I know you've been...
There is so much that's going to be going on here over the next few weeks. I'm going to be here for the next 3 days bringing you all the latest. But yes, yesterday the World Meteorological Organization announced their State of the Climate Report for 2021. What is it? Why is it so important? They wanted it to coincide with the start of COP, and it talks about all the climate indicators of things that have happened over the extreme weather all around the world. We've had our record temperatures through Europe that led to problem. It is happening high, it is happening low, it is happening right around the world. And we have many people trying to make a difference here at COP. All the leaders are going to be putting forward their ambitions and their targets, but we can all be doing more. ITV are going to be having a big green week, lots of programs as we head through this week. And at GMB, we've been doing our bit as well. So I went to find out how GMB have been going green.
You'll hear me talk about climate change a lot and the impact it's having on our planet. And at ITV, we are committed to be net zero. Big ones here in the studio. We've changed all of our lights to... It also has massively reduced our carbon footprint. Let me take you on to see what else is going on behind the scenes. Lights out. In TV production, paper is a massive thing. We've always printed out so many scripts, pieces of paper, but here in the green room, most things are done on computer now. I've told you about this. No single-use paper. And there's been some big changes in wardrobe. More sustainable brands. We borrow as often as we can and we wear as well. In fact, my cameraman Ed is re-wearing a pair of my shoes now. It's TV's Angie Peters. Cash.
Yes.
Three of them here, and we make sure as much can be recycled as possible. If you're not sure what goes in which bin, my tea bag goes in, and reduced what goes into landfill.
And we're clear.
You'll have seen broadcasts with these huge satellite trucks, but now we have these. Cameraman Matt, tell us more about their green credentials.
Hi Laura, yeah, these used to be big diesel-powered trucks, but now these are smaller, hybrid. They've even got solar panels.
Good Morning Britain are committed to be net zero by 2030. That means using 100% renewable energy, also having 100% sustainable supply chain and becoming a zero waste. You will see this. The Albert certification, a measure of our carbon footprint, and Good Morning 3-star, the highest level possible. We've done a lot already, but there's plenty more still.
We've done so much, there's plenty more still to do. That could be echoed up and down the country and right around the world. There is big hope that the leaders will come together to make a difference as we head through this week. I was at an event last night. I was at the Green Planet premiere. I saw David Attenborough, and there's lots of people there who have amazing, innovative ideas that will hopefully change the world, including lots of young people, the next generation, who are here to have their voice heard as well. So, yes, we see from the report how devastating things have been, and later on I'm going to be looking at the impacts that sea level rise could have here if we don't make any changes. But there's also a lot of hope that we could make progress here, Charlotte, and we'll be finding out in the next few weeks. Good morning to you. I am in Glasgow and we are here for, of course, COP26, the big climate change conference where nearly every single leader in the world is here to talk about tackling climate change. Behind me is the blue zone where all the UN delegates are going to be, and I travelled up by train yesterday. Lucky enough, I was fortunate to get the first train out of London, not one of the latter ones, with all the huge destruction and all of the problems, down to the fact that we had such severe weather. We had heavy rain yesterday, a huge amount of it falling in a short space of time. That led to widespread flash flooding with winds gusted of 60, 70 miles an hour. That brought down trees, even reports of tornadoes. And the weather this week starts off wet and windy, but not as destructive as it was yesterday. And the outlook turns slowly drier as high pressure starts to build in. But one thing that will happen is set to turn a lot colder. But today is the story of still strong winds, particularly for northern and western areas, a warning in force from the Met Office, and heavy bands of showers moving through northern Scotland, northwest England, North Wales, and through southern areas of England as well. Brightest conditions in the east today, and temperatures climbing into the teens at best. So let's take a look at our 7-day outlook. What does the weather have in store for the next 7 days? Well, here in Glasgow, it starts off pretty wet, then it turns drier. But weather-wise for Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern areas of England for the next 7 days, temperatures, we can see they are below average. It remains cool by day and by night as we head through the next 7 days. Percentage chance of rainfall starts relatively high. First thing this week, we've got sunshine and heavy showers with these blustery winds. It turns drier towards the middle and the end of the working week, and then into the weekend, wet and windy weather looks set to return. Fortunes further south for England and Wales for the next 7 days, away from the north of England. Again, It is cool. We've actually been treated to some mild weather lately. October has been a mild month, but now we're in November. It certainly will feel much more autumnal with these temperatures below average by day and by night. Percentage chance of rainfall, well, it's higher for the start of the week. It's hit and miss sunshine and showers, dry towards the middle and the end, and it stays largely dry into the weekend too.
You look at the granular detail of...
I feel both. I feel that the world leaders have their ambitions and their targets. We are nowhere near the $100 billion that we need to have to tackle climate change. We're about 2 years off from that, so there's a massive deficit and a massive gap. But there's definitely the hope and the promise from the big nations to commit. And yes, China aren't where they should be, but they're definitely doing their bit. They said they'll be net zero by 2060. They're not going to build any coal power plants outside of their own country. And these things are heading in the right direction. But the emissions gap report came out last week to say that current projections and current commitments get us to 2.7 degrees of warming. That is way off the 1.5 or 2 degree target that we need. But I don't think that's where the change is going to come. The change is going to come from the people who are here, and particularly the young people and the indigenous voices. I went to the premiere of David Attenborough's movie last night for The Green Planet. I met some of the old UN Secretary Generals. I met lots of young people who are really hopeful and innovative. And it's the change that will come from these quiet voices that will now become much more outspoken, like the Greta Thunbergs, that will make the change. And actually everybody there is hopeful and is optimistic that it is possible.
Promises that...
People in China want change. People in China want the cleaner air. They want the fresher air. They have all the science and technology and innovation to do the carbon capture, to produce all of the new green energy and all the resources that we need. So the government will have to act on change from people. And that is what is happening right around the world. Wow. Supermarkets have changed the plastic packaging because we as consumers want change. So I think change will come. Good morning to you, and it is behind me in the blue zone here where all of the leaders and states from around the world are meeting for the next 2 days for the really big climate talks, for the ambitions to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, to reduce our temperature. And yesterday at the opening of COP, Robert Burns was quoted, his famous Scottish poet, and it said, "Now is the day, now is the hour," and this is definitely the time for action. It's thought this is humanity's best last chance to tackle climate change. There'll be more than that as we head through the next few days. But weather-wise, what a day it was yesterday. We had torrential rain, flooding, reports of tornadoes, a tree down causing disruption on rail services. Weather-wise today, it is still wet and windy, but not as bad as it was yesterday. Warning in force for northwestern areas, 50, 60 mile an hour gusts and with potentially 70 with heavy rain and showers. Western areas, heavy frequent showers, hail and thunder certainly a possibility. In between some spells of sunshine, and while the outlook is quieter and calmer this week, the outlook remains cold. Good morning to you. We are in Glasgow. COP26 is on for the next 2 weeks, a conference of world leaders to tackle climate change. And there's a lot of hope and ambition here. We'll be telling you more through the week. Weather-wise, the weather was crazy yesterday. Extreme torrential rainfall, reports of tornadoes, strong gusts of wind over 80 miles an hour caused widespread disruption, flash flooding, and the outlook is still unsettled today, but not as wet or as windy. Today is a story of heavy showers, hail and thunder, still some strong winds. We're talking gusts of wind 60, maybe 70 miles an hour through northern and western areas. And the winds will slowly moderate through the day, but bringing frequent heavy showers for northern and western areas, tracking their way eastwards through the day. Everybody likes to pick up some of these showers today, so definitely take an umbrella if you can hold on to it in those winds. Temperature-wise, way below where they should be. The outlook is clear, cold tonight, a chilly one overnight tonight. Tomorrow, another one of sunshine and showers before it turns drier, staying cold for many of us as we head through the rest of the week.
If it doesn't work, and if climate action...
I think the thing is, the consequences are already bad. We've already seen, this climate change conference, COP26, is all about this being our best, very last chance to tackle climate change. That's why nearly every single nation is here, because climate change is happening right across the world. And Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, yesterday said it's happening from the bottom of the ocean to the tops of every mountain. The more extreme weather we've seen so far this year, which is why here at Glasgow, I want to show you what the real life impacts could be of a warming world looking at sea level rise. This is the very latest science from the very latest report that came out this summer. The worst case scenario, there are 5 of them. This is the worst case scenario of what things could look like if we get to 5 degrees of warming. Remember, we're trying to limit it to 1.5 to 2 degrees, and we're around about 3 degrees are our projections. Sea levels by 2040 could rise by 20 centimetres here in Glasgow. That's just 20 years' time
20 centimetres higher. That means they'll be around about my calf. We have to then just go forward 20 years to 2060. 20 years later, we would see almost double, almost 40 centimetres of sea level rise. And that is what it could look like. And that will be by the time that my Charlotte is just a little older than I am now. Then by 2100, projections, if we keep on warming, worst case scenario, 5 degrees of warming, the sea levels here could rise by just over 90 centimetres. That's just phenomenal. That's just here in Glasgow. That would be me returning here, would be my daughter Charlotte returning here when she's 84 years old, so when she's a grandma, seeing sea levels at that height. And it's not just here that this will be happening. This will be happening right around the world. Devastating impacts. We have these amazing graphics from a company called Climate Central to show what the reality could look like between a 1.5 degree warming world and a 3 degree warming world. This is what Buckingham Palace would look like. It would be underwater. The whole of the Queen's back garden would be because of the rising sea level. And Brighton, if we don't make these changes right here, right now, we'll be committed to 20 metres of sea level rise. So the quicker we act, the sooner we make the changes, we can hopefully drain that water back down to just below my ankles rather than me being waist high. That's how things could look here in Glasgow, but let's take a look at the weather for where we are. And that's why we're in Glasgow. Right here behind me is a blue zone where all of the leaders from the world will be as we head through the next few days, making these mitigations, making these adaptations to lower our emissions, to lower our temperatures so that the very worst impacts aren't realised. And that is the thing. We don't want these worst case scenarios. We want our best case scenarios. And there's a lot of hope and optimism that that will be possible. Weather-wise, though, we had torrential rain this weekend. Devastating flash floods. We saw the disruptions on the rail lines, and there is more wet and windy weather as we head through the day today. Low pressure close by to the north of Scotland. That is bringing windy conditions. We've got winds of 50, 60 miles an hour, frequent heavy showers for northern and western areas through Wales, southern England. Everyone picking up those heavy showers today. There'll be hail, there were thunder. Reports of tornadoes yesterday. We could see some tornadic activity yet again today. And throughout, the winds are northwesterly, and that means the outlook is cool. The rest of the week, the weather turns a little bit drier, a little bit brighter, a little less windy, but it stays cold throughout.